Frank Sinatra once said he would die for Dean Martin. He meant it. For 15 years, these two men shared everything. They shared secrets. They shared women. They shared a bond so deep that Hollywood called them brothers. Not the fake kind who smile for cameras. The real kind. The kind who bleed for each other. But on September 8th, 1965, inside the Copa Room at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, Frank Sinatra did something nobody thought possible. In front of 1,500 people, in front of mobsters, movie stars, and millionaires, in the middle of a sold-out show, Frank Sinatra punched Dean Martin in the face. The room went dead silent. Dean stumbled backward. Blood dripped from his lip. The band stopped playing, and every single person in that room knew they had just witnessed something that would shatter Hollywood forever. The man who said he would die for Dean Martin had just tried to destroy him. Why? What could possibly turn that kind of love into that kind of violence? What secret was Frank hiding? And what did Dean do that pushed his best friend over the edge? The answer will break your heart. Because this is not just a story about a punch. This is a story about brotherhood, betrayal, and the price of fame. And by the end, you will understand why Hollywood was never the same. Before we go any further, let me know in the comments where you are watching from right now. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss what comes next. But first, you need to understand just how powerful their bond really was. To understand why that punch destroyed Hollywood, you have to understand what Frank and Dean meant to each other. In 1959, they were not just celebrities. They were kings. They owned Las Vegas. They owned the movie studios. They owned the music charts. Together with Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, they formed the Rat Pack. The most powerful group of entertainers the world had ever seen. Presidents begged for their endorsement. Mobsters wanted their friendship. Women threw themselves at their feet. And when Frank and Dean walked into a room together, the whole world stopped to watch. Their chemistry was something you cannot teach. Frank was fire. Dean was ice. Frank burned with intensity and rage. Dean floated through life like nothing could touch him. Frank demanded perfection from everyone around him. Dean made imperfection look like an art form. Together, they were magic. But what the cameras never captured was the private devotion. When Dean's son got sick, Frank canceled 3 shows to sit with him at the hospital. When Frank's mother died in a plane crash, Dean moved into his house for 2 weeks. He slept on the couch. He cooked him meals. He refused to leave his side. They had a private signal. 3 taps on the shoulder. It meant one thing. I have got your back, no matter what. Dean once told a reporter, Frank Sinatra is the only man on this earth I would take a bullet for, and he knows it. Frank said something even more powerful. He said, Dean is not my friend. He is my brother. Blood could not make us closer. This was a bond forged in loyalty, tested by fame, and believed to be unbreakable. So what poison could corrupt a love this deep? The answer is a name, and that name changed everything. Her name was Mia Farrow. In 1964, Frank Sinatra fell in love. Not the casual Hollywood kind, the obsessive, all-consuming kind. Mia was 21 years old. Frank was 49. She was quiet, mysterious, and completely unimpressed by his fame. And that drove Frank crazy. He wanted her more than he had ever wanted anyone. But Mia did not like the Rat Pack. She found Dean crude. She found the drinking exhausting. She found the late nights and the gambling and the chaos beneath her. And slowly she started whispering in Frank's ear, maybe you have outgrown your old friends. Maybe Dean is holding you back. Maybe it is time to move on. Frank started to change. He started canceling nights out with Dean. He started showing up late to rehearsals. He started taking Mia's phone calls in the middle of performances, leaving Dean standing alone on stage, waiting. Dean noticed. He did not say anything at first. That was not his style. He covered the hurt with jokes. He told reporters, Frank has a new best friend now. She is prettier than me, but she cannot sing. But underneath the smile, Dean was wounded. He felt like 15 years of brotherhood meant nothing compared to a young face. And Frank? Frank was battling his own demons. He was terrified of getting old. He was terrified of becoming irrelevant. Mia made him feel young, but she also made him paranoid. She made him see enemies everywhere, even in his own brother. One night, Frank told his manager, "Dean thinks I am a fool. I can see it in his eyes. He is laughing at me." His manager tried to calm him down. "Frank, Dean loves you. He is just worried." Frank's eyes went cold. Worried or jealous? The paranoia was eating him alive, and it was building toward an explosion that would change both of their lives forever. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Are you Team Frank or Team Dean? Let me know, and stay with me, because what happened next will shock you. September 8th, 1965, the night everything exploded. The Sands Hotel, Copa Room. September 8th, 1965, 9:47 in the evening. 1,500 people packed into the most famous showroom in Las Vegas. Mobsters in the front row, studio executives behind them, politicians, socialites, and movie stars scattered throughout. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and expensive perfume. Everyone knew this was the event of the year. Frank and Dean, together on stage. The magic of the Rat Pack. But backstage, something was wrong. Frank had arrived late. His jaw was tight. His eyes were dark. He had been on the phone with Mia for an hour before the show. Nobody knew what she said. But whatever it was, it had put him in a dangerous mood. Dean tried to lighten the tension. "Hey, Pally," he said, using their private nickname. "You look like somebody spit in your bourbon." Frank did not smile. "Let us just do the show." The show started well enough. They traded jokes. They sang their classics. The audience was eating it up. But Dean noticed something wrong. Frank was not laughing at his jokes. Frank was not playing along. He was watching Dean, studying him, like a predator watching prey. Then came the moment that changed everything. Dean, trying to break the strange energy, made a joke he had made 100 times before. He looked at the audience, grinned, and said, "You know, Frank has been acting strange lately. I think his new girlfriend has got him on a short leash." The audience erupted with laughter. Frank did not laugh. His face went pale, then red. His hands curled into fists. Dean, still playing to the crowd, did not see it coming. Frank stepped toward him. "What did you just say?" Dean turned around. His smile faded. "Frank, it is just a joke. Relax, Pally." "A joke?" Frank's voice was barely a whisper, but every person in that room heard it. "You think my life is a joke?" And then it happened. In front of 1,500 witnesses, Frank Sinatra drew back his right hand and punched Dean Martin square in the face. The sound was sickening. Bone against flesh. Dean stumbled backward. His hand flew to his mouth. When he pulled it away, there was blood. His lip was split open. The band stopped mid-note. The audience gasped. A woman screamed. 1,500 of the most powerful people in America sat frozen in horror. Dean looked at Frank. His eyes were not angry. They were shattered, heartbroken, the eyes of a man who had just been betrayed by the only person he trusted completely. "Frank," Dean whispered. Blood dripped down his chin. "Why?" Frank did not answer. He just stood there, fist still clenched, chest heaving, staring at what he had done. What happened next, behind closed doors, would determine if their brotherhood could survive. The stage manager yanked the curtain closed. The house lights came up. The audience sat in stunned silence as stagehands rushed onto the stage. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 1,500 people had just witnessed the impossible. Frank stormed off without a word. His face was stone. His fist was still clenched. Dean was led away by handlers, a white towel pressed against his bleeding mouth. The towel was already turning red. In Frank's dressing room, chaos erupted. Managers, publicists, lawyers, everyone screaming over each other. "We need to spin this. Call the newspapers before they call us. This is going to destroy everything we built." "What the hell were you thinking, Frank?" Frank sat in front of his mirror, silent, staring at his reflection. His right hand was already starting to swell. The knuckles were turning purple. He did not answer any of them. He just stared at the man in the mirror, the man who had just destroyed everything. Then the door burst open. It was Dean. His lip was swollen grotesquely, already turning dark purple and black. He had pushed past 2 security guards to get there. His white shirt was stained with blood. His eyes were red, not from tears, from rage, pure, burning rage. "Everyone out," Dean said quietly. His voice was ice. "Now." The room emptied in seconds. Managers, lawyers, publicists. They all scrambled for the door like rats fleeing a fire. The door clicked shut. 2 brothers stood alone. The silence was suffocating. 15 years, Dean finally said. His voice cracked on the words. 15 years I have had your back, Frank. Through Ava. Through the career slump when nobody would hire you. Through the mob problems when they wanted you dead. 15 years I stood beside you when everybody else walked away, when everybody else gave up on you. And this is what I get? Frank finally turned around. His eyes were wet. His hands were shaking. You do not understand, Dean. Everybody is laughing at me. They think I am a fool for loving her. They think she is using me. And tonight, you made them laugh louder. You made me look weak. I was defending you, Dean shouted. His voice echoed off the walls. That joke was to show them you are still one of us. Still Dean and Frank. Still brothers. Still untouchable. I was trying to protect you, you stupid son of a gun. Frank's face crumbled. For one moment, just one, he looked like the scared kid from Hoboken who had made a terrible, terrible mistake. The mask fell away, and underneath was just a broken man. Dean, I am sorry. I do not know what happened. Something inside me just snapped. Dean wiped the blood from his chin. He looked at his hand, at the red staining his fingers. Then he looked at Frank, long and hard. Sorry does not unring this bell. You hit me. In front of the whole world. You chose her over me, over us, over everything we built together. He walked to the door, paused, turned back one last time, his eyes glistening. I would have taken a bullet for you, Frank. You know that. But I will not take your fist. The door closed behind him, softly, like a coffin lid. If this story is hitting you hard, drop a like right now, comment where you are watching from, and stay with me, because what happened over the next 2 decades will break your heart. The silence that followed lasted longer than anyone expected. That night at the Sands did not just end a friendship. It ended an era. The Rat Pack never performed together again. The newspapers called it the punch heard around Hollywood. Publicists tried to spin it as a staged bit gone wrong, a comedy routine that got out of hand. Nobody believed them. The blood on Dean's lip was real, the shock in his eyes was real, and the silence that followed was deafening. Dean retreated into his work. He threw himself into his television show, his solo career, his family. He smiled for the cameras. He cracked jokes on set. He pretended everything was fine. When reporters asked about Frank, he would flash that easy grin and change the subject. Frank who? He would say, and everyone would laugh. But those who knew him, really knew him, could see the wound that never healed. His eyes had lost something, a spark, a warmth, the part of him that believed in brotherhood. Frank spiraled. He drank more. He raged more. He pushed away everyone who tried to get close. His marriage to Mia lasted only 2 years. She divorced him in 1968. The very thing he had sacrificed his brotherhood for crumbled in his hands like dry sand. He was left with his fame, his money, his power, and an emptiness that nothing could fill. Not women, not whiskey, not standing ovations from strangers who did not know the real him. They lived in the same city. They had the same friends. They attended the same parties. But they never spoke, not one word. If Frank walked into a restaurant and saw Dean at a table, he would turn around and leave. If Dean heard Frank's voice on the radio, he would reach over and turn it off. The silence between them was louder than any applause they had ever received. Once, at a mutual friend's funeral in 1971, they stood on opposite sides of the cemetery. Their eyes met across the open grave. Frank raised his hand slightly, a small gesture, a peace offering, an apology without words. Dean looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked away. Frank later told his daughter, Nancy, "I broke the only real thing in my life, and I do not know how to fix it. I do not know if it can be fixed." 22 years of silence, 22 years of regret. But fate was not finished with them yet. In 1987, Dean Martin's son, Dean Paul, was killed in a plane crash. He was only 35 years old. Dean was destroyed. He stopped performing. He stopped leaving his house. He stopped living. Frank heard the news. He did not call. He did not send flowers. He showed up. He drove to Dean's house in Beverly Hills. He walked past the security. He knocked on the door, and when Dean opened it, his face hollow with grief, Frank did not say a word. He just wrapped his arms around his brother and held him. They stood in that doorway for 10 minutes. Two old men, crying, mourning not just Dean Paul, but all the years they had lost. Frank whispered, "I am sorry, Pally, for everything. I never stopped loving you." Dean whispered back, "I know. Me too." The punch did not end their brotherhood. It tested it. And real love, the kind Frank and Dean shared, does not die. It just waits. Have you ever lost someone and wished you could take it back? Tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from tonight? And if you want to know what Frank said at Dean's funeral in 1995, the words that made every single person cry, make sure you subscribe. Until next time, keep the legends alive.